right, with that, we're going to move on to the next section. This is the games we're playing. So it's hopefully new games, but sometimes we're revisiting some oldies. But first, a message from our sponsors. But that's right, we have no sponsors. But if you would like to be our sponsor, please reach out, Rip McAfee at fulldivepodcast.com. All right, now that that's out of the way, we've got a couple games to talk about. First one, War Dust. This came out.
Yeah, sorry about
out,
that. Mm-hmm.
No worries.
I'll stop interrupting you here, Rip. Go ahead.
Guys, I need to be quiet.
Yeah. Just want to, give him a little bit. So I believe War Dust came out like pretty much a week ago, I think, at this point. Maybe a touch longer. I forget what day exactly, and in hindsight, I should have written it down. But it's sort of a Battlefield style game. Where it's a bit of a mix between Pavlov, if you're familiar, and Battlefield, because there's no other VR game like it. It's 32 versus 32. There's vehicles. It's big action. Pretty ambitious.
They have a lot of interesting ideas for it. And yes. I gotta say, after the game has some weirdness with it, but it's a weirdness that you almost grow to love after time.
Yes, it's got it plays pretty well, I think. First off, it ran super smooth. Both of us had basically no problems. I think you did crash at the end, but that was after quite a bit of gameplay, and it's certainly not that hard to hop back in. It actually has a really fast boot time, which I was super surprised about.
For a game that has so much content, it runs and just boots up amazingly quickly. I don't know if you have this experience, but for a game like Pavlov, it feels like you try and boot it up and you're just waiting there in VR for it to come up for 10 minutes. Yeah. This game in War Dust, it's like, hey, I want to play War Dust. You click on it, boom, you're playing War Dust.
Yeah.
And for a game that can support up to 32, or I guess it's 64 players, 32 on each team, it runs incredibly well without any sort of stuttering or lag or anything.
Mm-hmm. The maps were big. They were I would say pretty. They weren't the prettiest maps in the world, but I think they were pretty well made. They were not just far enough that there's interesting battles happening in different places, but close enough that it didn't take too long to get to objectives. It was very Conquest style, if you're familiar with the Battlefield series. And rarely a dull moment. Super well made maps in terms of level design. I found every place to be sort of interesting, which is a lot to say for a game of this scale. And there's a lot of issues. As fun as it was, and it ran super smoothly, in terms of game design, oh boy, I don't know where to get started.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, this game is janky. Just to bring up one point that I think sort of, I don't know, the game is fun, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have a menu. Once you start playing, you can't exit to the main menu.
If you can, we could not find the button for it. That's between two people fairly familiar with VR.
Yeah, and so this game is, it's janky as all get out. You are flying through the air in weird ways. There's weird physics collisions, like a train that ran into a helicopter that just went, just skittering off into the air. It is a janky game, but it is one of the most fun VR experiences I've had in a very long time.
Yeah, I watched the trailer for it, and it definitely seemed like my kind of game that I would play. So I'm pretty excited to give it a try and let y'all know next week what my feedback
We'll play it with you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're definitely going to have to play some. I'm excited.
It's a lot of, it's so much fun, but it's the kind of like Skyrim. It's a ton of fun. But when it first released, there was a lot of jank. And to this day, there's still a lot of jank. But it's still so fun, and there's nothing else like it. And we're just kind of is in that same little spot right now where the graphics are kind of bad. The helicopter looks like a big rust bucket. Don't look too closely at it.
Oh no.
But and the vehicle controls are awful. They are some of the worst. But what
other VR game lets you, as a soldier, just climb into any vehicle you see on the map?
Right. It was literally
Oh,
Battlefield in the
that
sense
is
that
really
like you
cool.
could like hop in a tank and hop on a little ATV and hop in a helicopter.
Yeah,
And
some of the most fun that we had was we hopped in a helicopter, one of us was flying, and then a bunch of other soldiers, including Rip, hopped in the helicopter, took control of the side guns, and we crashed into an objective, and it felt like Black Hawk Down a little bit, where we're trying to fight around this helicopter, trying to capture the control point.
Because it was like it was down but not out. So I was able to. So Adam was out of the helicopter because he'd been driving, and he couldn't do that anymore. So he's like he's defending on foot, and I have like a relatively okay position in the helicopter. Like I'm kind of like I'm crashed down, but I'm still pointing up and defending the position, and we're just going ham on the enemy from that location. And it's so fun, and that's an experience you won't get. What is happening with my hand? Are you guys seeing this?
Looks.
Oh,
I think it
okay, it's
looks
happy
fine to
now.
You're
me.
good. You're good.
So is it like are online multiplayer with other VR people, or is it only with like a friend that you're playing with?
It's
Other VR
straight
people,
online. Yeah, it's with other VR
Okay.
people.
So it is kind of
They
like
do
that.
add in bots to make a full 32-32 match.
right? We
But we
should.
saw a significant amount of real life players.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think on average there is at least 15 to 20 players in
Which
VR.
that's pretty good.
It's pretty
Yeah.
good for a VR community game, yeah. And I will say, for anyone that's thinking about picking it up, it is an incredible game. Just try and get through the first 20 minutes of learning why the game is so janky, and then it becomes the best experience ever.
Yes. Like even as bad as like the vehicle controls are, and like for example your weapons and stuff, you have to like they're all click to grab, not hold to grab, and you're stuck with controller based movement, a bunch of weird stuff. The vehicles are like super strange to learn, and once you do learn them you're like this could be way better. But they're still usable. They're not like it doesn't mean that you can't play the game, that they're so bad. They're just really weird.
It has a lot of quirks.
Yes.
Which I don't know. I guess I kind of expect that going into a lot of VR games, especially newer ones.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't be the case, but that's what we're still dealing with, apparently. Is expecting
Right?
Exactly.
really janky
Yeah.
gameplay. The thing that worries me about a title like this, it sounds like it's probably really fun, but a lot of times games that come out that are VR multiplayer only, the first week you do have that great player base, and then you go back in a month and is anyone still playing? That's always my fear.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We'll see. At least they have the bots, which a lot of multiplayer games don't have. They just release. There's no PvE, but player versus environment functions. That it's just it relies on their multiplayer and their community base. And if the community leaves, then it's a dead game, and suddenly it's just not worth buying. This one,
Right.
even once no one's playing it, or at least only once a couple people are playing it, I think you can still play it because it's got the
It'll
bots
still
and
be
it's still
cool.
pretty fun. Yeah. And you can hop
That's
on with a
nice.
friend, and so long as you're on the same team, which was both very easy to set up and jank, but you'll have to play it to find out why that is. Um, you still play it with a friend, I think.
Definitely. It becomes much better with a friend.
Yes.
Because then
Like
you can
any game, I
experience the
suppose.
weirdness
Right.
together.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely prefer to play with a friend for online multiplayer games.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moving on to the next one. This is a game I think. Have you guys played Project Cars?
No.
I have not.
So this has been out a while. Speaking of like oldies but goodies, this is a game that's like it's Project Cars 2. Actually, I should preface. It's a racing sim. You can have a team that you join, and you have different like you for those familiar, you can like start. For example, you might start with like Formula 5, which is like the junior rookie series, and then work your way up to Formula 1. It doesn't actually have Formula 1, but same idea. And so there's a lot of like very realistic cars, all the tracks recreated, meticulous detail. And for anyone that has any love for cars, and even just people that like want like a really polished VR experience, you do need a controller or a wheel. These won't work anymore, but it's super polished. It runs really well. There were a couple reviews on, I think, Oculus that were people saying they had issues, but I think for the most part it runs pretty well. it's a lot of fun. Like, it's gotten me more into racing than anything else. I've never been someone who likes racing much anyway, and this was like so fun. Being like only in VR do you realize like how low you are in these cars. For example, like you have like a tiny little area to look over, and when you're playing in 2D, this like that's what it released on. When you're just playing on a flat screen, it's not nearly as immersive. It doesn't have that same feeling of speed. Doesn't have the same like everything. I don't know. I like could gush about it. I don't want to spend too much time because I'm the only one who played it this time, but super fun. And if you're looking, especially for like people who are new to VR and they're like worried about like what runs well, what's like a polished game, this is made by a big studio. It's already a polished game before it was brought into VR, and it's just all the better for being in VR. Would recommend.
I'll have to check that one out too. That's one thing I haven't done yet is played in a car in VR. So it's on my bucket list.
One thing
I have one question. So I have a relative that is into a racing game like that. He's big into racing, but he uses a game called iRacer. Are you familiar with that game?
Is that like the iPhone one?
iRacing. No, it's a PC based one, and it sounds like it hits a lot of the same points. But that supports VR as well, although it doesn't maybe sound quite as polished a VR experience as maybe Project Cars is.
So one point you made that I was going to touch on, I don't care about cockpit games. I don't care about racing games. Yet in VR, they are both just amazing. The immersion that you have, like, it changes it. So if you're like, you've had VR, but you never cared about cockpit games flat, give one a try. Get a demo of something, give it a try. It's just such a game changer. I didn't play Project Cars because I had a steering wheel for my PS4, but I played Dirt Rally, I played Drive Club, I played Gran Turismo. And again, these were all games I never would have touched flat, but I absolutely loved them in VR because it was actually like driving. I love driving. I was a dumb kid that did some racing. That's in my past. But I love real driving. It's not the same as holding a controller and pressing two joysticks. When you have the wheel, the immersion is just insane.
I bet. I don't have a wheel. I'm just working with an Xbox controller and having a blast. So I can't imagine how it'll be with the wheel.
Got to get the wheel.
How does that affect the motion sickness?
The wheel?
Well, it's hard to say
driving
these days
in cars,
because I get it so rarely.
Do you think like people who get it, do you think that would affect them? Like, would they have a problem handling driving games?
They don't still think so.
They still might, but one thing that a lot of VR games employ to help with motion sickness is some sort of a cage, whether it's a car, whether it's a cockpit, or even like Windlands. If you turn the comfort mode on, it puts this like grid around you that stays with you.
Yeah.
So that's supposed to help a lot. I'm not going to say they're not going to get sick, but they should be less likely to get sick.
Yeah, for how fast you're going and how much craziness is going on, I would actually say I didn't get any motion sickness. Whether that's attributed to like just my experience in VR or not, I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely. I was gonna say exactly what you said. It's you see the car, therefore it's pretty hard to get motion sick.
Right. Cool. Okay, I'll have to check that out too, and I'll let you know if that gives you any motion sickness.
You're our sickness tester.
Yeah, I'll be the tester.
Still get sick.
I'll give it about 5 minutes. I know, right? I'm cursed.
All right. Who wants to tackle the next game?
Destiny, what games have you been playing this last week?
So one game that I've actually been diving into more is National Geographic Explore VR. And yes, it's very different than my typical FPS games, but it's actually super cool. So in this game, I don't know if any of y'all have ever even watched a trailer or a video about it, but so basically when you enter the game, it gives you two different sections. One is to explore Antarctica, and the other one is Mount Machu Picchu. And for the Antarctica one, it's super awesome. Like when you first getting to the world, they have you sit down in a canoe, and it's like you're paddling through, the waters and like the snowy cliffs and all this, and you see all the cool like ocean life and penguins and all these different animals. And I was telling Rip about it. I don't know if it's just like a mind trick or what it is about paddling in that canoe, but I swear you can feel like cold air like rushing at you. And it's a really cool experience. And once you get to land, you actually get to do a little bit of like rock climbing and, setting up your camp. And if you do the Mount Machu Picchu one, you actually get to basically, it's more of a learning experience with that one. But basically, as you're visiting the different spots, they kind of tell you more about the history and they have you photograph, like you get a camera in the game and you have to photograph different little spots. But it's really good for all ages, which is another bonus about it. But for anybody who's looking for that traveling, more realistic experience, I highly recommend it.
Is this new? I haven't heard of it at all. Like I
No,
totally missed this.
yeah, it's been out, but the second version of it, the Mount Machu Picchu one, that part is a newer adaptation to it. Originally, it was just the Antarctica one. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's been out for a little bit now, but totally worth it.
It's funny, our next section is that quarantine section, and now it's like, well, that feels somewhat relevant, you know?
Hey, yes, yeah, that could definitely fit there too.
Next one, Adam, you got something you want to talk about?
Sure do. So maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later in the quarantine section as well. But I've been playing a lot of box VR in my time this last week. Over the course of quarantine, I maybe have put on a couple pounds, and box VR is one of the fantastic VR fitness game that is helping me, repent from that. It's helping me burn off those extra calories.
Mhm.
So box VR is a boxing game. It feels very similar to Beat Saber, where it's very much a rhythm game. Notes are flying towards you, and you have to hit them at the right times and in the right direction. But this game, unlike Beat Saber, is solely focused for exercise. And so, where in Beat Saber, you might see your score, in Box VR, you'll actually see how many calories you're burning in real time. And overall, as a fitness game, it's an excellent experience.
So we touched on this one a little bit during that dry run episode that I was talking about, where
the forgotten
we tested
episode.
the forgotten episode. I'm keeping it on the backlog if like we miss a week or something, and maybe you guys listened into it. Maybe I'll put it for the Patreon listeners to get access to. Who knows? But it's then he was like just sort of starting. So you said you were liking it then, but now that you've had like a week with it, you've been spending more time with it. How is it over time? Does it hold up? Is it like because it's designed we'd mentioned that it's a game, but it's more of like a fitness thing that can be a game. It's fun like a game, but it's got like designed, like you said, courses that are like so many minutes long, and it shows you like how many calories you burned. And while it's a lot of fun, it's more aimed towards trying to get fitter or at least stay in shape.
Right. So I'd say the biggest difference is, as opposed to something like Beat Saber, is a game that also happens to give you a workout. Box VR gives you a workout, but it also happens to be fun.
Yes.
And so I'd say that's the biggest difference between the two. Like it is, you play it because you want to work out and you're having fun while you're doing it. And so like it is definitely a commitment. It's something that you have to sort of will yourself to do, because when you put on the VR headset, you know that it's going to be a little bit of an ordeal. You're really going to get a workout from this. And, after playing it for another week, I'm enjoying it more because I actually have the stamina now to see more of the game.
Right? I play that game as well. I've not been so good about it this past week, I will admit. But I've been playing that for a little bit now as well. And same. It's, as you play more, you get to work out. Like I could barely do the 7-minute one. Now I can do the 15-minute one. It's a lot of fun. You do get sweaty, but it's fortunately most of the workout is sort of in your upper torso, as opposed to like, so there's a lot of like muscle burning as opposed to say Beat Saber, which can have you like dripping sweat after like 2 expert songs. This one's a little bit slower of a burn, but still burning, I think, as many calories. where you're not like gonna just drip sweat immediately and like instantly ruin your headset for the next 2 hours. Instead, you do sweat, but that'll happen. So maybe you'll want like a leather face cover or like some of like the detachable things. It's not the end of the world though, trust me. Um, but yeah, it's super fun. I if you like, we're gonna mention the quarantine section. If you need to lose some weight, it might be a good choice.
So I don't
cool
have
that it lets
box.
you. Huh?
Go ahead. You go.
Are you sure? Okay. I really like that you mentioned that it lets you see your progress. So then that way, for people who want to monitor that, it's a little bit more rewarding. And I think
Mhm.
it would keep them at it.
So I haven't played Box VR yet because I was saving it to do on like a video on the channel, but I have it on my Vive port. And the other night, Nat, my wife, she was wanting to get some exercise, and I was like, "Well, why don't you try this?" I haven't tried it, so I don't really know. She's played a good amount of VR, but I don't know. Does it seem like it's not super user friendly? Because she was kind of having a hard time navigating it. Like she kept ending up with the same song and like the same workout. So what are your thoughts there?
I didn't have trouble with it. I will admit. I don't think it struck me as like particularly non-intuitive.
It wasn't. I mean, it's not like a gym where you walk in, you just don't know how to use any of the stuff there unless you've been to gyms before, right? Like it's not. I wouldn't say it's overly complex, but I mean, there's not like a tutorial or anything for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. You were right. Like it didn't have a tutorial, but it did have like, I mean, it had like a menu selection in front of you, and you had like classes and class of the day, and you could like choose workouts based off time. I don't know. I guess I didn't have a problem with it, but I don't know. I play a lot of VR games, so.
Well, I was interested because like I've seen people say it has like 140 different songs or something. So I thought there'd be like
Yep.
songs to choose from. And I don't know if it's been updated. I swore there was a tutorial she did. So I think there is one, but it was like you had this big menu in front of you, and the tutorial was like this little button off to the right. So there was like something there for her that showed her like how to do the punches, but she actually missed that first. She tried a song and then went back to the menu and saw the tutorial. So I just thought, looking at it, I thought maybe it's a little less polished than like other fitness games or like Beat Saber. It's maybe not quite as intuitive, but once she got in and started throwing punches, she did have a really good time. It just was a little less approachable for her. And since I hadn't played it, I couldn't explain it to her at all.
Right.
Right.
I don't know. I wish I could be like, yeah, but it had some jankiness. But I didn't see anything. Honestly, it seemed pretty well made to me. Like
Yeah,
it
seemed
ran
pretty
super
polished for
smoothly.
me.
Yeah.
Well, I will play
Sounds
it
like it's
and
kind
get
of set
back
up
to you
like
too.
Beat Saber.
Yeah.
Yeah. The I will say that if you don't, I don't think I did the tutorial either. I don't remember. Yeah, you know what? No, I did do the tutorial, but even then, you gotta like there is a bit of like a learning curve, so to speak, in terms of like you really gotta punch the things that are coming at you, and uppercuts and side swings have to be good uppercuts and side swings. If you like kind of just like half. Trying to avoid a word there.
Delicately slice.
Yes. It there is a learning curve for that, but it wasn't like it just told me that I was not doing it like well, not like unintuitive, I don't think.
It's not Slapbox VR, it's actual box VR.
Yes.
They want you to be for real.
I like that.
All right. Jay, you've been playing Gorn?
So I've had Gorn for a bit, and this is actually definitely something that's probably more relevant now than ever because it's coming out on PSVR next week. But I finally got into Gorn today, played it for a couple hours, and if you're looking for a fun game that's also a workout, Gorn is definitely surprisingly it. So it's basically a gladiator simulator. You're in this arena. Everything's exaggerated. It's all cartoony. It's all jokey. This isn't like Blade and Sorcery where you feel like you're actually killing people. This is a fun way to go kill people.
Oh, jeez.
I had a great time playing it. The weapons have physics, which is interesting. So some of the weapons are two-handed, and you really have to swing these weapons to actually hit and hurt people. You have to really try. And so, yeah, you could probably get away with just doing slapping with like the little weapons, but the big weapons, you're actually going to have to try hard and play. And it's just...
It sounds so violent.
It is. It is a very violent game, but in a cartoony way. Again, you cut someone's arm off and you laugh. You don't go, oh gosh, what kind of person am I? Like Blade and Sorcery. I would definitely say if you're into that and you're of age to play a very violent game, I would highly recommend Gorn. It does look like it's not super long. They do keep adding content, but I mean, I think I played for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and I was already up to the second of 3 different floors that you can go to fight different enemies. So there's not a huge amount of that, but it's just fun. And I got out and I looked at my watch and it said I'd done all these steps and burned all these calories. So, and I was sweaty. I was quite sweaty. It is a surprisingly fun game that is also a workout.
I did play that game a while ago.
Orbis.
It reminds you of Orbis?
Oh, yeah, sorry. When you were talking about you really have to like swing it, it reminds me of the sword.
Oh.
Like, yes, that he was not joking. That thing is a workout.
Yeah.
Yes. It's surprisingly fun though. So with Gorn, you want to actually do the damage and you want to swing these weapons and you want to fight hard. So you don't realize that you're pushing yourself so much, but you definitely, disclaimer, make sure your PlayStation's clear. I even saw today a post on VR to ER. Someone had busted their hand against the wall. Oof. You got to be careful because you will get into this game and you will forget where you are. And like you're fighting these big guys and you want to knock them across the arena onto these spike walls. So you just do this crazy swing and you hit something, you're going to hurt yourself or someone around you. So be safe with it.
Yes.
So Jay, I personally have played a lot of the Psychopath Simulator, Blade and Sorcery.
Yes.
Which of the two do you prefer?
Oh man, I do really like Blade and Sorcery. I think it's really cool. It's got a lot more realism. It's got a lot more replay value. But I definitely would have to say Blade and Sorcery wins it. But Gorn is still worth experiencing, even if you played Blade and Sorcery, because it's so fun. It's so exaggerated. And Blade and Sorcery, for some reason, when I play, I feel like I need to play it for a while. Gorn, you could pick up and play for a few rounds and leave it, which is great, especially. Good. Yeah, if you're trying to get some exercise, it's just great and it works really well. And I think PSVR players are going to be really excited to get it. One really weird thing about the game, though, something I've never seen in a VR game, the first movement style that it defaults to is a grab and pull method.
Yeah.
So you grab the world. Bizarre. And pull yourself through it with your hands, which kind of gives you this bit of like, oh, well, if I feel like I'm running, it kind of works. But I couldn't feel good about it. I had to switch to my analog sticks. But I'm curious, with PSVR not having analog sticks, are they only going to get the grab and pull method?
Oh,
no.
I don't know how they feel about that.
I sure hope not. It was... Yeah, I didn't quite understand what was going on with that grab. Like, I guess it's like running, but running, you have momentum. Grabbing and pulling, you like the moment you've stopped, you also stop in the game, and then you move and stop, and it's like it's super disorienting.
It just feels stuttery when you try and move like that.
Yes.
Yep.
Sounds like it.
I tried the first round that way because just to see, is this like a better way to do it? But the problem was I was like holding the world with one hand because the guy would be coming at me with his sword. And I'd like push the world back so he wouldn't miss me. And then I'd pull the world back to me to swing in and hit him. And I just think I just punched my mic. And it was really difficult. Like the minute I switched to joysticks, it was like, this is so much better. This is so much more fun. I can't recommend that weird pull method. Change it before you even get into the first round.
Yeah.
Or you're just going to be wishing you hadn't.
Yeah, that was more or less my experience. And same, I would also put Blade and Sorcery a bit above it. There's just, mods make the world run with those types of games. So, Blade and Sorcery, way more replayability value, but Gorn's pretty fun. I wasn't like crazy about it because the cartoony value, I don't think, is Blade and Sorcery on PSVR? I assume it's not.
No, I don't believe it is.
Mm-mm.
If Gorn is very fun, and I think if you like lack those kinds of games, it's pretty sweet. I do feel bad though because Blade and Sorcery to me is a good bit above what Gorn is. It just has more options, and I don't know. I really like I really like Blade and Sorcery, especially with the Jedi mods.
Yeah. So PSVR users, Gorn can tide you over until you get Blade and Sorcery.
Yeah, there you go.
And it does have a really great combat system, but like you do get a workout. Like you'll feel winded after you get Gorn.